Hello and welcome to the round so far, brought to you by AAMI. I'm Riley Beveridge. This is Kane Cornes. Kane, it's been a dramatic round 5, particularly on Saturday. Let's start with our big story where there was a thriller at the Adelaide Oval. Port Adelaide just getting over the line against Freo.
Close games everywhere, and this was one of those. Look, Port Adelaide dominated the entries in the second half. I didn't think they played particularly well at all, and Fremantle are a hard team to play against, but these are the big moments. Late in the game, we're seeing Zach Butters there with the crumbing goal. He had 7 in a goal in the last quarter.
Yeah.
Thought he stepped up, and then Freo, you thought they'd iced it here. This goal from Brayshaw was clever. Look at the score there, 9 points up with 6 minutes to go. Upsets Charlie Dixon with one of the great contested marks you've seen. He was well beaten by Pearce. We'll get to that shortly, but he kicked accurately. And then my man, Jason Horne-Francis, goes forward, takes this mark over the back, composes himself, and with just over 3 minutes to go, he snaps that one home. And Port Adelaide, good enough in the end to hang on, albeit they didn't play particularly well.
They were 9 points in front of the 25-minute mark of this game, Fremantle. They were 9 points in front of the 25-minute mark of last week's game against Carlton. 2 games they probably should have won, lost both of them. You mentioned Zach Butters. He was awesome in the last quarter. But this moment with just a couple of minutes remaining where he cleans up Bailey Banfield, anything to worry about here because he's going to be one of the Brownlow medal favourites.
He comes in, we'll get another look at it here. See, I think he's got hands on the football, and that's the perfect technique. Yes, it's forceful. Yes, it's aggressive, but he's an aggressive player. The game's on the line. Wasn't a free kick. They will definitely look at it, but I'd be really disappointed. And we've seen some other ones today. Matt Crouch had a similar one where they turn their body, they actually win the ball or get hands on the ball with great technique. Yes, they get the opposition high, but you know what? It's a collision game, and from time to time that is going to happen. So I'd be disappointed if Zach Butters had a case to answer there.
Are you a bit worried about Freo? Because we mentioned the 2 games they probably should have won. Maybe they should be 5-0 to start the campaign. They lose to Carlton, they lose to Port Adelaide tonight as well. But 69 points against Adelaide, 63 against the Blues, 63 against the Power tonight, 9 goals in each of those games. It's starting to look like when JL first took over and they could defend really well, but they couldn't score going the other way.
Can't score. So, I mean, their forward line is just impotent, really. I mean, Tracy was really good tonight. I thought he provided a contest. He looked like their most dangerous forward, but Amos isn't the player that he was last year with 41 goals. Hasn't really looked like it. Had a couple of moments. Walters hardly touched the footy tonight, and then Taberner is out of form. So we'll see if when Darcy comes back in the ruck, Jackson can give them a spark forward, but he's been so good in the ruck. So, yeah, they're hard to play against, and that will keep them in almost every game, as we've seen this year. But if you can't score, you can't win. And when Port Adelaide hit the front, we're sitting there going, well, Fremantle will find it really difficult to score, so it's unlikely that they're going to pinch this game and kick a goal with under 3 minutes to go. So they need to address that. But having said that, it's been an issue for a number of years, as you referenced.
You mentioned the Dixon-Pearce matchup. There was an interesting flashpoint a quarter time between Charlie Dixon and Ken Hinkley.
He just wanted me to do a little bit better, I guess. And I wasn't too happy. I wanted a bit more of a chance. But that was sort of my selfishness where I thought I could have a little bit more of a crack where he needed me to do more of the team stuff. So, but that's all we went to work with in the sort of late in the second and third quarter and the last.
Seconds after that, Kane, 90 seconds after that chat, he takes a big mark in the goal square, goes back and kicks the goal. Pearce probably got the better of him throughout the night, 20 disposals and 13 intercepts. But that moment late in the game changed things.
Yeah, Pearce has been awesome. Honestly, I think he's been the best key defender in it so far. We're through 5 games. He's been that good. But I love that exchange from Hinkley and Dixon at quarter time. That's a mature, robust conversation that you have all the time. No one lost their cool. They were both composed. Dixon would have been frustrated by some of the ball use. Ken saying, I need more of an effort. And if you don't mark it, don't be outmarked, because we saw Port Adelaide 29 entries to 17 in the second half. Luke Ryan on his own had 4 intercept marks in the last quarter and 10 possessions. So their ball use was poor. They get bombing it in the heads of the likes of Dixon and Georgiades and Marshall. That's why they played so well. But he stepped up in a big moment, kicked 2 crucial goals, and then after the game spoke really honestly about how he was beaten, but wasn't his game, but was certainly him and Jason Horne-Francis' moment late.
Let's get to Marvel Stadium now, where the Crows got off the board in season 2024, and this was an absolute thriller. They won by 2 points. There were 15 lead changes for the game. Can you believe that? There was 16 points down with 8 minutes to go.
Amazing. Look at their accuracy, Adelaide. 13-3 there. This one goes back and slots it. I just thought they changed it up. Their midfield mix looked so much better. Berry was the sub. came on in about a quarter, had 9 touches, 4 score involvements, and then kicks the winning goal. We're seeing Rankin here. We'll get to him shortly. And his extra midfield minutes. There's the match winner from the sub, Berry. He was awesome. I thought he came on. He drove with his legs. He wanted to take the tackle on. And it keeps Adelaide's season alive. These are moments late. Keane had the job on Curnow and was pretty good, albeit Curnow kicked 4 for the night and had 7 shots, was a bit inaccurate. But you can see what it means to them and the way that they played 18 marks inside forward 50. That averaged about 9 for the year so far, and they were very good at that stat last year. So they played with speed, they played with aggression, they took a risk and they were rewarded.
Carlton were the beneficiaries of a touched call last week, not necessarily this week. This came in a crucial moment in the game where Matt Owies snapped it through. Now, the umpire's call on the field was a touched behind. Went to the score review. They said it was inconclusive, but I think there's a number of angles here where you can show it's clearly not touched.
It's a goal, and it's a big moment when you lose the game by 2 points. So the umpire's called touch. 2 errors here. The actual goal umpire for calling it touched, and then the score reviewer for not thinking there's sufficient evidence to overturn that. There was no fingers bent back. A couple of angles show that there was a clearly gap between ball and finger, and when you lose by that small margin, and that is a goal, that is not counted as a goal, then it is a big moment. And once again, the score review, the goal umpiring across the board has been questionable, to be fair, this year.
Let's get to our Saturday star now, and it is that man you mentioned before, Isaac Rankin, thrown into the midfield today, and he was superb. 23 disposals, 3 goals, 9 score involvements. Took 6 marks inside 50 as well.
Took 6 marks, all of them inside 50, and kicked 2 out in the full. Could have been a huge afternoon. Thought he was the best player on the ground. Started in the centre bounce, which everyone has been calling for, so not sure why they've taken so long to make this move. I thought Rochelle played higher up the ground and was influential, but then he goes forward and gets a match-up that he likes. It's the similar way that like a Tom Papley plays. He's their most skillful player, and that stood out. He was the match winner. Missed a goal as well late that could have put Adelaide in front. You thought they'd blown their opportunities, but there's the numbers. And what you're highlighting there is the centre bounce attendances. 5 between rounds 1 and 4, 20 tonight.
He'd had 21 in the first 4 weeks of the season in total. So he has 20 against the Blues on Saturday. He was the difference maker. Jordan Dawson said that they'd been flirting with the idea of throwing Rochelle and Rankin into the midfield.
What flirting? Well, why are they flirting? They trained their pre-season. If you want to have Laird and Dawson and Berry on ball, and Crouch, that is a shocking mix. So the minute they put Soligo in there, the minute they put Rankin in there, Rochelle's the next one that has to go in there. And we'll get to what Cam Rayner did for Brisbane, but Rochelle should be doing the Cam Rayner. He's that good and he's good enough to do it. So it's kept their season alive. They play North next week. And credit to Matthew Nicks for actually making the move, albeit 3 or 4 weeks too late.
It's the same as the Isaac Heaney conundrum at Sydney, I reckon, where you're actually not affecting his score involvements or his ability to hit the scoreboard. He still kicked 3 goals today, even though he had 20 centre bounce attendances. But the Crows moved the ball across the course of the afternoon so much better than they've done all season. We mentioned a couple of weeks ago that they were averaging, I think, 55 points a game. First time they've hit 100 all year. They were the highest scoring team last year. And they just took the game on more.
Well, they did. Well, we sat at the Adelaide Oval last week after watching the Crows on Thursday night play slow, boring, wide football that was so easy to defend. This is the difference. Look at this service for the forwards. They love it. 127 handball receives. This from Crouch. Last week he went back off the line and kicked it long or short or sideways. That is a forward handball at speed, and the forwards love it. 1-2, give it. It was like a hot potato. The ball didn't sit in their hands for any longer than a second. It was bang, it was out. 120 handball, 7 handball receives. And look, if they can play that style of football, that's going to test the opposition, and they haven't tested them at all prior to tonight's game. And it was a really good result. It looked lost. The season would have been done at 0-5, but now there's a glimmer of hope, and it gives the players hope that that's the sort of footy they need to play and that they're good enough to beat some really good sides.
Bit of a reality check for Carlton. They're 4-1 on paper. It might not look so bad, but have a look at their next 5 weeks. So they've got the Giants undefeated. They've got the Cats undefeated. Collingwood, the reigning premier. Then Melbourne, never a tough game. Sydney away from home. It's about the toughest test in footy at the moment. Plus, they've got Mitch McGovern went down with a hamstring. Adam Chera missed the game with a hamstring. Adam Sard was subbed out with a hamstring. Starting to look kind of questionable for the Blues now.
We're going to find out a lot about them. I think it's Gold Coast after that Sydney game in round 11, so it's a really difficult stretch. No one's going to have a tougher stretch. Good news is we're going to find out a lot about the Blues, who haven't been playing absolutely perfect football, but they're a good side. Sam Walsh clearly makes them better. 34, something like 9 tackles. It was unbelievable. I mean, 13 tackles and 9 clearances. So to do that off the injury layoff that he has had, what a star.
Let's head to Canberra now, where the Giants just hung on against the Saints. They were 35 points up at the start of the last quarter. St Kilda kicked the last 6 goals of the game and really made them earn it.
I turned it off. I went to the gym. I was on the exercise bike and I came back in and I thought, what is going on here? This is the last moment. Look at the score and the time of the game. 3 minutes to go there and you can see 18 points and then what is happening? We're all going, this couldn't happen, but it just kept happening. So as you said, they kicked the last 6 goals of the game. The Giants didn't trail at all for the whole of the game. The Saints did not hit the lead. So I actually thought prior to the last quarter, it was a dominant display across all facets from the Giants. I thought they were really good, and I was sort of questioning where the Saints were at. So I hope the last quarter doesn't sort of mask the issues that the Saints have got because they don't have a lot going for them at the moment, the Saints, unfortunately.
The Giants had James Peatling to thank, an unsung hero for much of his career so far. This is our moment of the weekend because when they got the margin back to a point, under 40 seconds to go, James Peatling off the wing will see the vision from behind the goals. He saved the game for the club. Yeah,
I love this. So this vision behind the goals, this is the perfect way to defend your opponent. So he's so conscious of his man. We see him highlighted there at the top. He's conscious of his man, he's within touching distance, but when he sees that his man is irrelevant, he drops off him because he's in an irrelevant spot and he comes across and saves the day with courage and smart. So that is a big moment for the kid to go, wow, this is something special about the character of him. Just exactly how you would draw it up on how to defend your man and how to come off and intercept for footy in 2024.
The buffer that the Giants created was made by their small forward trio of Harvey Thomas, Brent Daniels and Toby Bedford, who I reckon are just about the best in the league at the moment. And it's funny because 18 months ago, none of these guys were playing football for the club. Harvey Thomas hadn't been drafted yet. Toby Bedford was at Melbourne. Brent Daniels had his injury issues. They change games every week.
They're so crucial in both facets of the game. So a lot of what we're seeing here, and I wanted to highlight this because it's both aspects, so the defensive side, but then as soon as they get the turnover, and they're really strong off turnover. So watch this from Bedford. Watch the pressure there, the chase from half forward to come up and to turn it over and then turn that defence into offence. We'll see it here again. Daniel's there. All right, that's the intercept. But once we've won that, then how do we work our way through the opposition and how do we score off turnover? That's what the best teams are doing, and to your point, and Toby Green kicks the goal off turnover. They're doing it so well, and I thought for the first half that really stood out to me. Electric ball movement, but they also really got after the opposition today.
I reckon Darcy Jones, who hasn't made his AFL debut yet, suffered an ACL in his first year.
Got another one.
Yeah, he's going to come in over the next couple of weeks, I reckon, for his debut, but there's huge raps on him at the Giants. Hey, this was a really dirty day on the injury front in Canberra. So Sam Taylor, who's been just about, unequivocally, I think, the best defender in the comp so far this year, he goes down with a nasty concussion. Max King hurt his knee. Obviously, he's had a history of knee issues right on three-quarter time. The Saints say he'll get scans when he returns to Melbourne to discover the extent of that. And then also Stephen Cornelio hurt his knee in the last quarter as well. The Giants saying it's not minor, but they've already ruled out an ACL, so that's good news.
Gee, the King one's big. I mean, they're all big. Taylor will come back from the concussion, albeit it was one of the nastier concussions we've seen. There's Cornelio, who's been in really good form as well. So thank goodness he's been cleared of that ACL damage and good of the club to release that information so promptly. You would think still going to suffer a significant layoff of 4 to 6 weeks, just having a guess with the way they're talking about it. But King's the one I'm waiting for. Like, he's had a poor run with injury and hasn't been sound for mainly the majority of his career, and how crucial he is for the Saints. We saw, them lose him early on last year with the shoulder, and he probably didn't fully recover. So fingers crossed for him.
It's really worrying for Max King. All right, let's get to our AAMI clangers now. Who covers clangers? AAMI does, and we'll start with Michito Owens, who took a fantastic mark and then goes back and has one of the worst turnovers you'll see, which results in a Jesse Hogan goal.
Just a rush of blood. He knew it too. You take a hanger and you get all excited, just put an extra bit of pop on the kick. And here's Lachie Neale's daughter in game 250. She's okay there, but she did not like the banner. The banner frightened her, and then, oh my God, that's a disaster. I'm not sure she'll remember that, but certainly a good photo for the 21st.
And how about Kyle Langford? He kicks the goal. I'm not sure if Jake Stringer was too happy about him doing it as well. He's calling for the hands the whole way down there. He wasn't too happy, Jake.
Well, it was Jake's free kick, I think, and then he didn't get the handball receive. And I don't think Kyle did the wrong thing. I think he just make sure of it, just kick it through. It's a team goal. Yeah. We all win, but we'll get to the Bombers and how good they were.
Don't risk the turnover. All right, let's stay at Marvel Stadium. Friday night footy, where Essendon tore this game apart just before half-time. They had a run of 10 goals from 11. and it blew the Dogs away.
They had a shocking record against the Bulldogs. They'd lost 9 of their past 10 games. Huge crowd at Marvel, over 50,000 to see the Bombers, who have been struck by injury and suspension. I don't think they had any right to win this game of football. When you look at Perkins out of the side, Setterfield out of the side, Wrights out of the side, Reeds out of the side, so many injuries to key players, but they just stormed home. It's been a big issue for the Western Bulldogs since that 21 grand final, and during it that they can't stop momentum. They concede run-ons of 5 goals or more with the likes of North Melbourne and West Coast. That's how unable they are to stop run-ons. It's been an issue for them. And, it's a devastating game. In terms of the context of their season and where the Bulldogs are at, that was a bitter blow.
It certainly was. We'll get to the Dogs in just a little bit, because Sam Durham came straight back into this Essendon side and this Essendon midfield and looked fantastic. He played on Marcus Bontempelli. It wasn't necessarily a tagging role, but he stood alongside him and got the better of him.
Yeah, I loved his work at centre bounce. He's a gun. So I missed him. They missed him last week, mid-season draft. He just signed a 4-year contract, but how's the ball use? Like, that's where you want it. Jake Stringer's going, thank you very much. And so he goes and puts a body on Bontempelli. So Bontempelli beats him there, but he doesn't give up on it. His second and third efforts and his ability to distribute from centre bounce. And I don't know why teams don't do this more often. We see Petrarca and Bontempelli usually run around with no one on them every week. And when they get some attention, they don't like it. And then you can do this off them as well, because they will take you to the football, and their defensive accountability, because they're used to having no one on them, isn't great. So I just thought he was enormous. I love the fact that he's on ball and changing up the mix. We've seen Perkins do it before he got injured. They've gone a bit younger with Caldwell. And I just think it's given them a different dynamic rather than the mainstays of Merritt and Parrish and Shield that have been there in past years.
They're 2-3 now, the Western Bulldogs. Another week of calls where Luke Beveridge's selection decisions have come under the spotlight. This is what Luke Beveridge, their coach, said after the game.
I talked to our supporters. I talked to them about the possibilities, and even though we're evolving and there's some changes within personnel at different times, and where the players themselves have created an internal sort of pressure for spots, and that's all okay if you end up being a formidable team. Right now we're not. Whether or not there's any pain as we evolve and move into the future, because it's all about the now and what's up next and what's up next year, and history is history. So I understand that if people aren't sure about where we sit in the scheme of things, and it is early in the year, it's just reality.
I got no idea what he said. Is he trying to tell us that they're rebuilding? He's talking about pain, but we're still in the now. He's talking about talking to his supporters. He's talking about confusion about where exactly the Dogs are at. Why doesn't he stand up there and tell us where he thinks they're at? Because obviously he's got an idea in his mind that they're not as good as what the club and the board and the list management see. I think he's doubting their list, just reading between the lines, but really confusing comments. To have Bailey Dale as the sub, I just don't understand playing the likes of O'Donnell and Bramble and Baker and these players ahead of Bailey Dale, who you've committed to long term. He's out of contract. You've signed him long term. You did the same with Caleb Daniel. You did the same with McRae. And look, he pumped up Sanders throughout the pre-season, said he's the most ready first-year player he's ever seen. What he's done to that young man and ruining his confidence with subbing him out twice. You can see it in his body language. So it is genuinely hurting careers. And these players are too good to be playing in the VFL or as a sub. And if Luke Beveridge thinks the list is no good, just come out and say it instead of talking around in circles and talking pain, because that was a devastating loss against a team who you line up talent for talent, and they should be winning by 10 goals, not conceding 10 out of the last 11 and losing in embarrassing fashion. So I'd be really disappointed once again, not for the first time if I was a Western Bulldogs supporter.
They had 9 players with fewer than 50 games experience under their belt against the Bombers on Friday night. You mentioned those 3 that have been in and out of the side. Caleb Daniel dropped. He was an All-Australian in 2020. Jack McRae started the season out of the side, triple All-Australian. And then Bailey Dale, an All-Australian in 2021, the sub on Friday night. A scary incident involving Tom Liberatore late in this one, where he just sort of collapsed. And there's some obvious concern shown by Darcy Parish, who stayed with him for quite a while afterwards just to make sure he was okay. Now, he's been ruled out under the concussion protocol since this occurred. There was a bit of confusion afterwards internally at the Western Bulldogs around what the issue was, and there was some questions around whether or not he tweaked his ankle. That doesn't look like someone who tweaked his ankle, but the Dogs said afterwards that Liberator categorically passed a scat test, definitively no concussion issue, but they've placed him in the concussion protocols.
Yeah.
But that looked really worrying.
Yeah, I'm concerned as well. I think they've done it for the look of it. I think we still need to back in the club's medical system. Like these are club doctors who care so deeply about their players. The last thing they're going to do is put them at risk. Now, yes, it was a bizarre incident, but he explained it himself after the game. They've clearly examined him really closely and he's passed the test. But for whatever reason, outside pressure or pressure from the AFL, and you can understand why they've put him in concussion protocol. So I just don't want to get to a point, what I'm trying to say is that we start to doubt the club's medical system, because I think they're first rate, I think they're first class, they've got an experienced doctor, and I don't want to get to the point where we start questioning the decisions that the clubs are making medically.
Let's head up to the Gold Coast now, where the Suns defeated Hawthorn by 9 goals on Saturday night. And it was their trio of young key forwards. How exciting is this for the club? Because Ben King kicked 4 goals, 4. Jed Walter kicked 2. Ethan Reid kicked 2. Both of those guys first-round picks from their academy last year. Looks like a really dangerous forward line starting to build.
Riley, they're coming. They're coming in a big way. So be really careful because this team is going to be something else in a couple of years. And I think they play finals this year. They've got West Coast twice, they've got North Melbourne twice, they've got the Bombers twice. There's winnable games everywhere. They've got the easiest draw out of any of the 18 teams. And they've got young players getting games under their belt and coming through really nicely. This kid's not getting much of the footy at the moment, but you watch. He reminds me a bit of Josh Kennedy from the West Coast Eagles, his ability to get after the opposition with his chase and tackling his hunt, and then to take a contested mark. He's really starting to improve week on week. And Ethan Reid, they rave about. And I mean, there's you name them, they're everywhere. to go with the core group that have now played a lot of footy together.
They're the only side in the comp that plays both North Melbourne and West Coast twice each this year, so that should be 4 wins, which should catapult them into that finals contention. Another really sorry night for Hawthorn's midfield group as well. And have a look at this, Kane. So Cam Mackenzie subbed off in the third quarter with 3 disposals, but these are their 5 leading centre bounce players this year. None of them got more than 14 touches.
It's embarrassing, isn't it? And Sam Mitchell was scathing after the game. They're in a bit of a hole, and I've been really positive about the way Hawthorn play their football and the coaching that they've got and the game style that has been implemented. But I think they've taken a step backwards this year.
Yeah.
I mean, but albeit they've been good last week, so they do seduce you against Collingwood, but then they turn up and perform like that. Yep, they've got challenges with personnel. Yep, they've got injuries to key players that are out of the side, Bruce and Lewis and the like, the Wizard Watson, but not enough excuse tonight to perform like that. They nearly had 100 less disposals and the midfield just couldn't get their hands on it. Carl Amon was the only player with 20 plus disposals tonight. They got genuinely smashed and they got beat up around the ball, not for the first time this year.
Let's get to the MCG now. Thursday night footy where Brisbane got a really important win over Melbourne. And it was this defensive intent, both in terms of their interceptability behind the ball, but also their tackling that got them over the line.
Yeah, I reckon this was the performance of the year, but just because it was done in all facets. So their ability, they took 130 marks, they just picked their way through Melbourne, who was so strong defensively. But then there was this, the defensive stuff as well, the tackling 82 to 53 from tackle. They scored heavily from turnover, they scored heavily from stoppage. It was the complete performance, and it was a side that's got, okay, you're questioning our form at the MCG. You've questioned our form in the first 3 weeks of the season. We're going to turn up and we're going to show you. And once again, pretty good coaching from Chris Fagan. The work they did on that man, Christian Petrarca with Fletcher off the wing. And then we'll get to Cam Rayner in a moment. But not dissimilar to what Adelaide did today against the Blues. A different role for Cam Rayner, and he was so influential. And
they completely choked Melbourne scoring. So this is the fewest scores that the Brisbane Lions have conceded since 2019 to three-quarter time. Melbourne got a run on late, got the margin back to 22 points. But at three-quarter time, and you can see the level of opposition where they're doing it well against 17th, 18th, 16th, 12th. So this is easily the best side they've done it to, completely choked their scoring.
Yeah, and that's been the issue for Melbourne a couple of times, hasn't it? Not this year, but historically, their connection between mid and forward, and Brisbane exploited that. So they're back in a big way. I think that they play Geelong this week, so that's a really good test for them. They've got a couple of difficult weeks in the next fortnight, but they'd be feeling much better about themselves clearly after knocking off a really good side at the MCG.
You spoke about Cam Rayner. I reckon this is just about one of his best games because he started in the midfield. I think he had 6 clearances to quarter time alone. We'll see a whole bunch of vision here where, and this is all first quarter vision, where Melbourne hardly laid a glove on him from these contested situations.
I've been really disappointed in his start to the year because I thought year 7, I've seen you really put Adelaide apart in a final. and he's been disappointed. So averaging 16 touches and he'd only kicked 3 goals for the game to start the first 4 weeks of the year. He just flicked a switch, and it was a different role for him. So more centre bounce action, and look at the power, and you shrug the tackle. That's what the best players in the game are doing, and I just think the upside for Brisbane, if they can get performances like this out of Cam Rayner, he's the point of difference for me. So 6 clearances in about the first half of the first quarter alone. He had 9 for the game, 25 touches. There was career highs everywhere across the board, and that's the role. So start at half forward. If the opposition want to drop off, come up to stoppage, do some damage. If you're finding it hard to get your hands on it, go to centre bounce and then reset as a forward. Not dissimilar to the discussion we had about Isaac Rankin earlier.
Charlie Cameron earning a 1-match ban in this game as well for a dangerous tackle on Jake Lever. So at this stage, we think the Lions might challenge that, but he is at risk of missing next week's clash against the Cats. All right, let's get to the rest of the round now, and we start at GMHBA Stadium where Geelong takes on North Melbourne. You just hope that one doesn't get ugly. And then West Coast against Richmond. This one's been billed as Harley against Dusty, the EFL off, the effective fend off. Whoever can get the most across the course of the afternoon.
How many goals does Jeremy Cameron kick tomorrow?
Yeah, you worry about him and Tom
7
Hawkins
plus.
getting off the chain a little bit down there with North Melbourne's undersized backline. Kane, great work from you tonight.
See you next week.